again. We know this is what we're meant to do. So we wake up, put our feet on the floor, go and conquer the day like a warrior, like warriors. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business and life. That's right, that's right. No need to panic anymore. We got lots of support and an army of warriors by our side. We fight the good fight when we unite. We fight the good fight when we unite. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sondra Ray, and I am the host of the Coffee Shop Show. And today we are going to talk about business and legal and business. As you start your business, there's definitely some legal things you need to consider. So, of course, that's not my expertise. It's definitely not Peter's expertise. So we're going to bring in the expertise that we have in our resource bank in the tribe, which is Miss Nicolene. Hi, my dear. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So if you can give us like a 5-minute brief, like what are like some main things we should consider as we're starting our business or in the first, 6 months to a year?
Great, that's a fantastic question. And I think a lot of us could benefit from actually thinking about that in a real way from the start. So as we start out, I think ideas, big ideas, small ideas are all around us. And once we've really, I almost want to say, pinned it down and said, this is the one that we are going to go for, it's really important to look at the registration of intellectual property rights. So whether that means a trademark of your logo, if you've pinned that one down, or your slogan, anything from a visual identification point of view. If you are more creative than that and you've created something or invented something, a patent, and then of course, as an international principle, most of the written paperwork or written document in various forms that we do create is automatically protected by copyright. There's of course a caveat to film that's slightly more complex. But I think as a good point of departure is once your idea, your unique idea has taken significant shape, have that registered. Now, when I say this to people starting out, I often get the backlash of, no, I've heard some horror story. I've heard some horror story about someone who has done all of that, and they were still a victim of counterfeiting. For example, in the context of someone who has a clothing brand, for example. So yeah, it won't protect you against all the bad things that can potentially happen to your brand. But if you don't have it in place, the problem is then we fight on two levels. First, we have to actually prove that we have a right. So we spend a lot of time and waste a lot of time to do that if these things are not in place. And then we can keep the person accountable who's infringing upon our rights. And often the time lag, practically speaking, between the two actually invalidates any claim we may have had. So really important stuff. That is a classic example, I think, of a failure to launch in a not so humorous way, of course. And then secondly, most of us start off as solopreneurs, where we trade under our own personal name. And there's no one size fits all to this. But I do think the minute you start taking on more risk, and that could take the form of maybe a big business deal that you're seeking to close. It could be a range of people you want to employ. The minute we have more moving parts, that increases risk. And then it could be a good idea to look at registering your business as a company or in different jurisdictions, we call it private companies or limited liability companies and the like. If you don't have an increase of risk, but you are paying more tax because you are doing business in your own name, then it could be good to say, what is the business tax rate in my jurisdiction? How close am I to that? And the minute you get close, it could be a good idea to switch over anyway from a tax planning perspective. And remember, the minute we register a business, it can go on regardless of where life may take us. It can go on even beyond our own life. And it could then be something we can pass on to the next generation if that's what we are seeking to do. But without that vehicle, it's really like having a rubber duck in the middle of the ocean. So that would be my second tip. And then thirdly, let's be clear on the culture we want. And I know for some of us it may sound, but I'm the culture because it's just me. Yes and no. Culture we associate usually with our teams, but it's also about the values you plug into your business that your client will experience, that any person who maybe freelances for you would experience. So it's a much bigger concept, and it really does start with the values you bring to the table. As much as the business becomes an entity in its own right, at the very outset, it's an extension of you, often a very uncomfortable mirror of ourselves. And therefore, when things don't quite go the way we hope they would, or when a client experiences us in a way that we didn't really want or intend for it to be, I think it's a question we have to ask ourselves. What am I projecting in terms of my values? What culture are we creating that our clients are experiencing, or our freelancers or employees ultimately when it grows beyond that? So those would be my three nuggets from the outset.
I love that. I love it, Nicolene. All three of those. I definitely love all three of those. The last one, I definitely want to say that your values, I don't want to say they change, but they can adjust to how your business is going or how you're being treated or how you're treating people. So when I do quarterly reviews with people, I tell them to check that because I know my boundaries in business have definitely changed over the 5 years. In a good way, more boundaries, looking at specific people and how I'm treated, how I treat subcontractors and so on and so forth. So I think that I like that you bring that up because I don't think people necessarily think legal and culture together, but legally they go hand in hand because people can come back many reasons about your values, or you said this in your contract, but you didn't hold this or that, or all those things. So I think those are extremely important. So thank you so much. Peter, come on in.
Awesome. First of all, Nicolene, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. I think one thing I want to highlight, if we take a look at ourselves as entrepreneurs, we are experts at not spending a cent. We are experts at starting things from nothing, scrounging things together, build the way that we can, spend as little as possible to make as much as possible. And that's what we're good at. When it comes to legal's just one of those things where you think to yourself as an entrepreneur, you're like, can I save the money? And can I, for a certain time period, maybe you can. and not spend the money to make more money. But it's going to get to a point where if you don't spend the money, you're going to lose a lot of money. And I think it's about finding that tipping point as an entrepreneur. When am I getting to that point where I actually need to focus on it's built, it's established, but now I need to have it like set in stone? And I think that legal part is the setting in stone. Creates that space of this is now carved into the rock. This is the way it is. And this is how I'm protecting myself. It's almost like a prevention is better than cure scenario because we tend to not understand where that tipping point is as entrepreneurs, and we avoid it for as long as possible until it bites us in the bum. It bites us in the bum. Sometimes it's too late, and we go on a rough ride in the legal space. And then we're running to the Nicolenes of the world and going, oh my goodness me, I can't believe it. This and this and this has happened. And her response was, well, do you have this? Do you have that? And the answer is no, I don't. Well, then you don't actually have a leg to stand on. So I think what I want to highlight is let's figure out where that tipping point is and actually take the steps to protect the spaces that we work so hard to build. Is it going to cost you? Yes. Is it going to save you? Oh, goodness me, yes. So find that tipping point before it's too late.
Absolutely. I want to add on to something Sondra also said about the values that change. I think I want to leave that point on. I want to leave it at the point of saying that yes, our values change and evolve, and our business goes through season and it changes and evolves. But where we are at has to be directly correlated with what we are actually doing. There must be a golden link. You can't say on your website, for example, we offer, I don't know, a free meeting, and then you charge the person for that meeting. Or you can return if you're not happy. At no obligation, no charge, I give you your money back, and then you don't do that. Now, those are silly examples, but the point is the minute we overpromise in our marketing material, and I think that's something that we are so, it's such an easy thing to do because we get to a point where we are so excited about what we do that we inevitably just go down this spiral. And we never really think, hey, can I actually do this? What happens if all of them want it at the same time? Can I actually deliver on that promise? But we don't ask ourselves those questions. So, tipping point. The minute you make a promise, whether it's on social, whether it's on your website, you have to make sure it finds its way into the legal document that forges that agreement. Now, the document doesn't forge the agreement in the sense of connecting with the human. It's a record showing all of us, because as we progress in our interaction with one another, we forget. So no one goes out to think, how can I break a promise today? I think if that's how one gets up, then we've got some bigger problems. The average person actually forgets in a couple of weeks, a month's time, or years' time. So that's why the agreements we enter into are not about a deep sense of mistrust. That I don't trust you. That's why I'm giving you a contract. No, it's that we are both happy that what I've promised and what you've promised, that it's all put in one place where we can refer back to it in case something doesn't quite go the way we thought it would. So, tipping point. There are so many great resources out there. We live in 2025. Back in 1975, yeah, we had problems. Then the only problem or the only solution you could approach was someone that could charge you whatever they thought they could charge you. very little competition, very little innovation in the legal space. But now we've got such great tools at our disposal. It doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. Start small. Say, let's get our constitution right. What are we about? How do we take decisions? Who would be involved in the process of making a decision? What if I say yes and you say no? How do we deal with that? And often an outside person just sitting with you and saying, okay, guys, I'm glad you guys have found each other. Let's talk about what happens if either of you become sick. Can you go on without her? Can she go on without you? What happens if you never come back if you've become sick? You've had a change of heart. What does that look like? What if your partner gets a great opportunity overseas and you can't continue with the business? What does that look like? So we are often perceived as lawyers to just paint all the bad stuff. But I think we see how life changes for people. And often that we can just help you ask those questions. So the minute your concept is there, do yourself a favor and jot down, what are we about? What is our identity? Back to the culture thing. What values do we bring? What is going to be important to anyone who interacts with us? Who are we and who do we want to approach us? Just the other day, I said to a client who was a bit difficult around an accounting issue. And I said to them, that they feel that there's a delay on the part of the public office, and therefore we shouldn't get paid until that issue is resolved. So I said, but that's not what we promised each other. I promised you to submit that at a particular date, which I've done. Now, you've promised me in return that you'll pay me for doing that. So if we can't bridge this, then we've got a problem here, because I like to work with people who make and keep promises. And I like to give that to the people I work with. So for me, it's unfortunately very simple. The promises we make, we need to keep, or we need to be able to adjust if something beyond our control forces us to adjust. Then we need a roadmap to deal with that.
Yeah, I love that, Nicolene. I know one of the reasons I'm in business is for the time, flexibility, and freedom to be where I need to be for my children and my grandchildren. So, but I'm very upfront with that. I mean, it's not like necessarily written in my contract. I do give notice as soon as I can, but if there's gonna be an off day, I will like text or email right away and be like, hey, bad day, like gonna be at the hospital today or whatever, like I'll work on Saturday or whatever and do my best to make it up. And I have clients that are very family orientated, like family is family and family is first. So I built that in my values, that I value their family, they value me, my family. So it's not, definitely isn't a written thing, but it's an attitude and a agreement that, we'll both understand that life happens, kids, family, and situations happen, and that if you can give that flexibility and freedom, you can do that. That's not a reason to not do your work completely or not pay somebody. Like, you have to watch that boundary, I've found, because business is business and friends are friends, and mixing them both, I've gotten burnt. So I do definitely have contracts every single time. But I do give grace and people give me grace. And I think you can do that if you have that boundary and relationship. My business is relationship based, very, 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 very much. So I think that gives me that wiggle room to be like, okay, this happened, that happened, like, how can we make this work? How can we get this done? And I'm pretty upfront and honest. I'll be just like, hey, we're on our third specialist of the week. Like, you gotta give me an hour or two, and we'll be good. So I think being upfront, like you said, say what's going on, I think is very, very, very helpful. Communication. I think it's the biggest one. I over communicate and I tell clients that up front. I'm like, I'm gonna tell you everything. So if you don't want to know everything, or if you could just be like, okay, sure. And I do have some clients that are like, yeah, okay, I don't care. But I'm like, just let me say it and then we'll move on and we get the work done. So Declan, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, and yourself?
I am good. I am good. Come on in the conversation.
Nicolene, I have a question for you.
Mm.
How early is too early? Because, and I know that you're going to say it's never too early to have these things in place. And something that I am living by at the moment is that good fences make good neighbors. I'm experiencing it in live as we speak. But there are things that I could never have anticipated that are going to happen. And being involved in Explore Protec and kind of what I do, I see a lot of startups who go through this issue of, Nicolene, come, we're going to go and we're going to start this really cool tech law firm, 50-50, baby, let's go. And then all of a sudden, Nicolene does all the work and Declan is sitting with 50%. So, and we've written down on some stupid napkin, or we've done something, we've got really excited. So I'm starting the governance process now, but it's because of problems, not because of anything else. I mean, I can also tell you a horror story about why Let's Yak is trademarked, but it's because it was a reaction. So I think the question I have for you is, as someone who is not lawyer or legal minded at all, how do you prepare for the worst case scenario legally without, like Peter said, putting the money forward or putting something down? I mean, if I had to say, put down some basic governance rules and make my co-founders sign it, for example, thank goodness it's not exactly problems with my co-founders at the moment. But if I had to do that, from a governance, how accountable can I hold them within the power of the law? Yeah.
I think, and those that know me well will tell you that I'm very pragmatic. So let's be realistic. When we register our businesses, most countries issue a registration certificate, a constitution. We call it a memorandum of incorporation in South Africa. And that basically is your foundationary document for any decision that gets made, right? Whether it's a board decision or a partner or shareholder decision. So that's your basis point. If you are the only shareholder or owner and only director, that is okay for the first bit. Okay, in terms of at least there's something in place. Now, from a government point of view, and this is not aimed at South Africa specifically, I've seen these things across jurisdictions. It's really hard to read those standard issue documents that come with your registration. All of them across the world. It's not a South African problem. So at some point, when you actually want to engage with someone to join you as a 50-50 partner, for example, it's critical for you to actually know what you are selling. Surely you wouldn't walk into a pitch with a potential client completely unprepared as to what your product can do, how it's going to work, what are you going to do if this issue arises. Surely we prepare for our negotiations or pitches adequately so that we can create the best impression we possibly can. And when that starts to happen, we quickly realize this document sucks. Why? Because I have to be a lawyer to actually understand it, and we grapple, right? I'm going to tell you straight up, we grapple, because you can't read that document without having the Companies Act or equivalent legislation across different jurisdictions next to you when you actually read it. Yeah, it's 8-9 pages long, but it refers to section this and section that. So it's actually a terrible document to navigate. Every new relationship needs governance, right? So the minute we're starting to think, maybe I need a business partner, I say there are 3 core ingredients for any good marriage or partnership for that matter. And partnership is business marriage, right? We need to be clear on where we want to go. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And if it's out of sync from the start, this is not going to work. I can tell you that definitively. Secondly, we need to talk about money. What if we run out of it? Who can pitch in? And what are we going to do if I can pitch in, but you can't pitch in? Because otherwise, I'm going to feel abused. I'm going to feel I'm giving and you're not. And then thirdly, who's going to do what and take ownership of what? So that one person doesn't end up having 50% for just attending one meeting per year. That causes resentment, which may not be a big deal today. It may be an irritation today, but that irritation, leave it long enough to fester, and it will become a dispute. So I think those 3 key components have to be hashed out. While we are excited and we're dating, right? And everything is honeymoon, we have to have those conversations. And it helps to have someone who's well experienced to tell you, what if that happens, guys? What if there's a lead, but you have 2 individual businesses and you don't pursue it together? How are you going to feel about that? Devil's advocate. The minute you hire your first employee, we need to look at, have you documented everything? Because you don't want someone to come into chaos. So that breaks morale, right? And it inevitably leads to a bad place. Think about yourself. Would you want to walk into a place that it looks like a paper box exploded? Just because no one knows where to find anything. It's all over the place. Now, that's what emotion people often experience when they walk into no policies in place. We fill in that form, or you could just tell me on a napkin you want to have leave. It's about building trust. So every relationship's governance is about, I want to trust you and you want to trust me. What am I going to promise you? And what am I going to do if you do this? And what are you going to do if I do that? It's all about trust. So when do we start? We start from the start. And we don't have to do everything immediately. I always say sustainable solutions are to build. We have our first customer, we need T's and C's. Let's build that. Okay. Then we test it, and if there's feedback and people complain about things or give us inputs on certain improvements, then let's look at that. It's supposed to be a living, breathing document in itself. Or if we have an online store, let's make sure that we are responsible with how we deal with privacy. So, and then back to tools. We've got such great tools out there these days. And I don't just say that because I've built one, because I think this is something that can help people. In many jurisdictions, we've got really great tools that can get you started. If you don't know where to start, look for a reliable tool. It really helps you at least just navigate your first couple of steps. And then as you know, these are my options, then engage with a professional to say, I've done some research. These are my options. From your experience, what do you think? What is your advice to me? That's a much higher level conversation than going in and saying, I don't know where to start. That person is going to sell you the whole world and 10 yards added to it. So it helps you extract more value, more relevant value for your business.
Okay, so essentially, because I'm thinking about the young entrepreneurs from the Ignite program and from the Explore Protect program, and I'm just thinking, I can hear them now. Oh, but I don't even have a registered business yet, or I don't even yet. I don't even yet. Like, how can I have this in place? So actually, what we're saying is when we're on our own, it's a little bit different. Probably start writing down your processes for building trust with customers and so on. And then as you go through each stage of your journey, the first thing you should think about is what are the legal implications that I can put in place to keep me and my business safe. So I'm about to bring on a partner. Okay, what are the shares? How's it distributed? Conflict resolution, governance, boom, boom, boom. Okay, I've
Absolutely.
got my first customer, service level agreements, or whatever it is, all this type of stuff in place. Okay, so it's not necessarily that I have to have everything in place right now. It's just as you go along, just make sure that you're thinking of the legal repercussions of bringing people into your space.
Yeah, and that's, oh, sorry.
No, sorry for that.
That's okay. So not that I don't agree, Declan. Definitely that's why we say your business plan is a breathing document, a living document. Your legal documents are breathing documents. That's why you should review them, preferably quarterly, so then you're not caught in the back end. It's tax season here, so taxes are due April 15th in the United States. So everybody at like bookkeeper, and my bookkeeper's like, let's go talk to the CPA. So I talked to the CPA for the first time this year. So knowing your resources is extremely important. And then, yeah, as you grow, I've never talked to a CPA. It's my 5th year. But I was like, okay, wait a minute. I've added some things, doing some different things, have different avenues for income. So the bookkeeper's like, I know what I know, but I don't know what she would know. So let's bring her in. And she was actually very impressed and was like, hey, you got a good grasp on this and you're good for now. So was grateful for that. But Megan, let's give Megan a chance. Hey, Megan, come on in.
Thank you very much, Sondra, and thanks, Nicolene. Thank you, Declan, for bringing that up too, because I think the two biggest areas for me to be looking at would be one, the legalese, so the language use that Nicolene mentioned, and no, it's not easy. And, so many people these days, I had a conversation about a week ago with someone, and they just said, chuck that legalese into ChatGPT and it spits out the answer, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness. We don't actually want you to go there, but let's just start that conversation. And this is the importance, highlighting the importance of one, knowing what the proper tools are, as Nicolene said, find those reputable spaces where you can actually really know that what you are looking at is a true reflection of what you should be getting out of the system you're putting it into. So I think over a period of time, what I've done is I've found some reputable and reliable sites where I can go on and I can compare information. And literally that's what I do in my legal space. I go, I need one of those documents. Let's Google it and see what a template looks like. And when I see similarities between different templates, I will go and try and decipher the legalese myself. And then I'll go, right, let's go and see what these different sites say about the same document, right? And try and filter through before I take it to the expert and say, right, I think I know what I need. This is what I'm looking at. So I think that's really important. And the point that Declan raised about, people stepping into entrepreneurship, there's so much going on. You don't even know what the documents are that you're missing. You don't know the steps that you're missing when you're starting in that space. And I think to bring it back to the conversations, the network, the being able to reach out to someone reliable, trustworthy in your space and just going, okay, your business is 2 years old. You should have gone through this process. And how did you deal with it? What did you do? When did you do it? And I think mostly the important thing is you need to be, although there are options to outsource it, I think it's really important for you to know what's happening in your space. So keeping a finger on the pulse. And oftentimes that doesn't mean knowing the law back to front, but it's knowing enough about it to keep yourself out of trouble. And then being able to call on the right people when you find that you are out of depth, right, in a certain situation. So I think it's about being curious and just knowing that everything is a learning process and a growth process. I just started an NPO, and I was clueless in December when we registered it. But after 3 months, I feel like I can go out and start a consultancy because, boy, I've been doing some research, you know? So everything is a learning process. And I think that we sometimes underestimate ourselves when it comes to knowing certain things and onboarding certain things, because as Nicolene said, again, we've got so many resources around. And I think that entrepreneurial thing about I'll do it in my corner and I'll do it alone really needs to fly out of the window, because if you don't have a group of people or someone around you that you can ask, you will stay in that hole. You will stay there for a very long time, and it's not the best place to be.
Thank you for that. I really resonate with a lot of what you've said, Megan. Declan, I want to just take a step back and say we need to look at the words we use when we describe the legal. And I've made it my life's mission to dispel some of these nuances that I've stepped into after I completed my studies. We are seen as, oh, I need to have this to protect, to make sure you can't hurt me. Think about the language when we replay this. Let's just rewind and hear what language we tend to use, right? And really what I'm trying to tell you in this discussion from my perspective is that relationships are as complex as human beings are. And we need to see our contracts as tools to manage and direct the difficulties of our relationships. Not that every relationship is going to be difficult. Some are going to be super easy, but you need that one that is going to be super challenging. If it has a really good contract, it makes that process of navigating your way out of that proverbial corner much easier. And therefore, it needs to fit purpose on the human beings that are involved in it. It's quite essentially a promise that we make one another. And it's a record of what you promised and what I promised, if we think about it at its very elementary level. So I encourage the research. Go and look at how others have done it. We do that in all our prototyping. Why don't we do that with our relationships? So that's the key point I want to leave you with. On the point of legal, it's really not about putting up a shield or a wall, a fortress, so that no one can ever hurt us. It's about, I'd rather want to say, let's compare it to a boat. A boat, and we are going to sail the ocean or the water, tough waters, smooth waters. We're going to sail it in this boat. And our legal, that's the boat. So if we want to get somewhere pretty quickly, smoothly, we may need a speedboat. Or if we want to take it easy, we may need something bigger, more luxury. It depends what we are doing and why and how we want to get there. And therefore, when the situation calls for it, when the risk is high or the relationship is super important, spend that little bit of money to get that outsider's perspective, but do your homework. Because sitting with that expert and not saying, this is what I think I want, but you are here to look at blind spots. Where are my blind spots? Is this the best way? This is what you do every day. I often say to my clients, if we want to have the next best super fancy boutique hotel in, let's say, Cape Town, South Africa, are we going to get Uncle Joe from the corner to design it? Or are we going to go and look for the very best architect that has the very best creative vision to put this together for us? How can we expect to have a boutique hotel of international standard And Uncle Joe can be a fantastic human being, but maybe he's just not the right person for this job, right? And so it's all about what do we want the outcome to look like, and who is the person that we are wanting to have the relationship with. And that's really what your legal should become. It should become an integral part, not some document that you do once, you pay a lot of money for it, and it ends up in a drawer. And 20 years later, oh, where did I put it now? That's a problem. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks so much, Nicolene. I put it in the YouTube chat, positive trust building equals legal. So you're building trust, not only with your partner or your customers, but with yourself too. You're building your trust with yourself and your business identity. So yeah, putting that positive spin in it. Peter, come on in, and then we're going to start wrapping up. 45 minutes always goes so fast.
Awesome. I think being in the entrepreneurial space and having functioned with multiple entrepreneurs and relationship building with entrepreneurs around the world, I get to hear the stories all the time. And I cannot tell you how many times I've heard, oh, there was an opportunity, it cost X amount of money. 5 of us went into the opportunity together because that's how many of us it took to cover the cost of what the opportunity costs to take. But now all 5 of us have different ideas as to how we're actually supposed to be moving this forward. What do we do now? All 5 people have put money into something. The initial person that spotted the opportunity has this idea in their head is, we're going to buy into this opportunity, and then we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and we're going to make it a success. But then person number 2 and person number 3 and 4 and 5 are like, but I thought that we were doing this, and now all of a sudden we don't agree. Then they need to start dissolving agreements. Then they need to start paying people out what they paid in, and then they need to make profit in order to pay those people out. And then it becomes a whole huge mess, which could actually be avoided if you'd actually just put the right things in place, so that as new partners are brought into the space, they understand what they're buying into, they understand what their role is, they understand the direction of where they're going, they understand what they're meant to be doing in order to get there. And then if they don't agree, well, you have that to fall back on and go, well, we don't agree, and this is how we agreed that we would disagree. And this is the process that we're going to follow. It's all in, everybody's got access to it. It just makes that transition so smooth. But we think we're so smart as entrepreneurs, we're just not going to do that. We're just going to trust the all 5 to 9 to 12 people to step into one space, and we're just going to hope and wish that we all agree on the same thing, and that we're all going in the same direction. Newsflash, you cannot put between 5 and 9 people in a room and have them all agree. It's not happening. It is not going to happen. So I think when it comes to certain situations, you want that tipping point to be before sooner, or rather than later. So you want it to happen before all the people agree to go on this adventure together. You already want it in place. It's not a thing of getting all the people together, jumping into the opportunity, and then creating the legal document, because you don't experience the safety of it. And I think would be the key word, would be the safety of it. Put it in place, and like Nicolene said, it's the boat. Now you have the safety of the boat to function this adventure in. And I think that's quite important. Just thought my 2 cents. I see these stories all the time.
I love that. I love that, Peter. And Nicolene, give us a quick wrap up as we get ready to go.
I will do my very best. I'll end up with a joke to say. It needs not be a lawyer in the room for people to disagree. All we need is 2 of them, right? Peter's pinned it at 9 or more. I've seen some pretty intense disagreements when it's only 2 and no one was a lawyer. Jokes aside, I think the key takeaway that I'm hoping we'll see is to be excited about the legal side of your business. Don't see it as a box to tick, please. Business is built around humans. Business is built to serve humans and to make an impact on humans. People, profit, planet, right? So let's start to live that. The legal, and that's why I love what I do, the legal allows us to see all of that in fruition. So see legal as a key success factor in your business. Be excited about it. And I really hope to have some more of these conversations. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Nicolene. Tell us your name of your business. We will definitely have your LinkedIn link in the show notes, but real quick.
You can find me at Schoeman-Louw Incorporated. That's the law firm. And the two legal tech products that I am proud to have been an innovator of here in South Africa is Pocket Advisor, helps you with some background and some educational resources around legal only, and Contracts for Biz, which is your online contract shop here in South Africa. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to continue the conversations and the tips and the shares that we had here tonight.
I love it. I love it. I love it, Nicolene. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring you in during the business planning part of it is so that we start the legal conversation now. Yes, we will definitely have more legal conversations throughout the year because they're very important, but they are important like we said, from the get-go. So thank you so much for being here. Grateful. That's why we have a tribe. So we have the resources to help each other. My name is Sondra, and I'm the owner of Get It Done, and I help you get things done. I do walk into the offices with the piles of papers and help organize it and get it done so that you can get back into doing what you want to do. So that is one of my superpowers, and I love doing that so that people can move on with their business and get things done. My next workshop is a quarterly review workshop, and it is this Thursday, 2 times. So you can take advantage of either of those, and the link will be in the chat, or not in the chat, it'll be in the show notes, because Susan is amazing. Grateful for Susan. She does our show notes, she does our covers, and then she turns this into a podcast on Spotify. So make sure you share, and give us a rating on Spotify so that more entrepreneurs around the world can be reached. Peter, you want to sign us out?
I do want to sign us off, but just before I do that, I just want to ask, Nicolene, would you send us the links to the tools that you've created? Because I know that you've actually created them specifically to support entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs, especially, so that we can actually put them in the description as well. So to Pocket Advisor and to the contract space, that would be absolutely brilliant. We would love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, it's been another fantastic show, and I want to take one more second. Sondra, you've been absolutely incredible. The ride over the last how long has it been? It's been almost a year. Maybe
year and a
more.
half, almost
Year
2
and a
years.
half. Goodness me, time flies, and we don't even have a contract.
That's true. You're supposed to tell that part, Peter.
But it's been an absolutely amazing journey, and I think that what you're building and what you're creating for the entrepreneurs out there is phenomenal, and we need to share it. So it's been absolutely brilliant. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of our show, and I'm going to end it off with the words from the infamous and esteemed Werther, which is, may all your wildest entrepreneurial dreams come true.